Welcome to the Strained Hammy Podcast. It's March 18th, 2013. My name is Mark.
I'm Rex.
And I am Travis.
Today we're going to talk about Dallas athletes past and present that we wouldn't want to see in another uniform, our ideal versions of the Rangers pitching staff, and then we'll end with a fun little segment in which we talk about the fan we encountered at a recent trip to a Stars game. Definitely won't want to miss that. All right, being sports fans in the DFW area, we're lucky to have all four major sports in our backyard, and we've seen some great players come through here. Some of the players make a bigger impact on us than others. Tonight, we're going to give our ranking of the top 10 DFW athletes that we'd never want to see in another uniform, past or present players. Then we're going to list our top 5 active players who wouldn't want to see leave the area. And just to be clear, we're not talking about the best players, just the players that have made such a big impact on us that we just could not imagine them in another uniform. Rex, you want to kick that off?
Yep, I'll start at number 10 on my list is Michael Young.
Wow.
I know that's a little bit controversial, but and we can get into some details a little bit later about why he's there. But we'll just go through the list. Michael Young, number 9, Rolando Blackman, Mavericks, of course. Number 8, I have a tie. It's a Cowboy tie. I had a hard time picking between which one I wanted here. So I went with Larry Allen and Bill Bates at number 8.
Nice.
And Bill Bates was a close player to my baby pants for football joy. So at number 7, I have Mike Manano, one of the greatest stars ever. At number 6, DeMarcus Ware.
Yeah.
Maybe a little low on Travis's list. Number 5, Pudge Rodriguez. Number 4, Dirk Nowitzki.
Man.
Whoa.
Number 3, Troy Aikman. Number 2, Emmitt Smith. And number 1, Captain Comeback himself, Roger Staubach. One of the things I will have to say on my list, I did try to incorporate all 4 of the sports.
Yeah.
So that may make some of the Cowboys players may fit in that list a little bit higher, but if you incorporate Rangers and Stars and Mavericks, organizations that haven't been around quite as long, then some of those Cowboys players get bumped out.
So that's did why Dirk not make your top 10 list?
No, he was
number 4.
I was number 4.
Number 4.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah, he's way up there for
It's very
non-Cowboys,
Cowboys-centric top 3 there.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty Cowboy-centric over here, too.
I'll clear that up.
I debated for at least 30 minutes today about Larry Allen. I wanted him to be on there so bad, but I couldn't do it. But he's a guy that I really loved. Mine goes like this. Number 10 is Troy Aikman. I realize it's really low, but there was a point in time that I wanted him to play for a different team just because I wanted him to stop getting his brains beat in.
Fair enough.
Number 9, Rafael Palmeiro. Just a guy that I personally love.
HGH and all.
HGH and all.
Finger wag.
Hey, it's B12, man. Don't worry about it. Number 8 is DeMarcus Ware.
Surprised he's that low on your list.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite players, but we've had some great players. 7 is Emmitt Smith. 6, but number 1 in my heart is Randy White, Super Bowl MVP.
Damn good barbecue.
Yeah. Love Randy White. Number 5 is Michael Irvin. Highest of the triplets because I think he was really the heart and soul of that team and most exemplified being a Cowboy out of that group, except for the cocaine thing.
Maybe including the cocaine.
Yeah, he did a good job. He did a good job representing that particular team, yeah. Number 4, Pudge Rodriguez. And, really the only longtime Ranger on the list. Number 3 is Dirk Nowitzki, and I really wanted him to be number 1. I tried really hard, but I couldn't do it. Number 2, Roger Staubach, because he's Roger Staubach. And I know that everybody's like, who's number 1? Roger Staubach.
I'm thinking that.
Number 1, Bob Willie. First ever drafted by the Cowboys, there for their first 2 Super Bowls, and really kind of took the Cowboys from nothing to greatness, largely on his back. on defense and was there for the whole time. And I think would have been the player that, if he would have left, would have crushed the whole Cowboys mystique early on. So he made number one on my list.
That's a good number one. I wanted to put Bob Lilly in there somewhere, but I thought as far as sports fans in general remember, maybe he doesn't make the top 10 for younger fans who don't really remember.
Yeah, younger fans definitely. I did.
I wasn't alive then, but he certainly was somebody that my dad talked about all the time.
Yeah, my dad was the same way. He made Bob Lilly. It was like God, Jesus, Bob Lilly, and then the Holy Spirit.
All right, my top 10, when I was constructing it, I was thinking it would be a little less Cowboy-centric, but then I had 5 on it by the time it was over. Number 10, I have Quincy Carter. Just kidding.
Well, I had Mike Vanderjagt as a honorable mention.
There you go. No, I had DeMarcus Ware at 10. Not a huge current Cowboy guy, so I guess that might be why he's kind of far down on my list. 9, I had Daryl Johnston.
That's a good one.
Moose.
Yeah, you'll see on my list I like kind of gritty guys. These guys I've had sort of emotional attachment to, and Daryl Johnson, I love guys who are gritty like that. Another guy that was gritty, Rusty Greer. That
is a great guy. You don't want to see him on another.
Yeah, you don't want to see him in another uniform. Another guy who I've got a huge emotional attachment to and a man crush, Adrian Beltre. That might not have seen that coming, but I'm a Ranger guy. Jason Witten. Then I have Mike Modano at 5, Emmitt Smith at 4, Staubach at 3, Aikman at 2, and Dirk Nowitzki at 1.
Yeah,
fair enough. I think at the top of the list we're all pretty similar.
Yeah, I Aikman over Staubach is rough, but that's the other thing, that those 70s Cowboys in my house were revered. Randy White was my favorite. It is my favorite football player right now. I never saw him play, 3 downs of football, but my dad talked about him with such reverence that I love Randy White.
Or Staubach or Randy White.
No, Randy White. I'm talking about that 70s
gotcha.
era is big to me just because of the way they talk about him. I go back and watch the DVDs of those 70s Cowboys and just fell for him.
Gotcha.
Well, I know you said you debated Larry Allen, and we're all, big time into the 90s Cowboys. That was right in our threshold. But Larry Allen, one of the best left tackles of all time, if not the best. Certainly, he was the strongest NFL player of all time. He could win a fight against a chimpanzee. Those things elevated him on my list. So I know he didn't play like a flashy position, but he was certainly worthy of it on my list because of those reasons.
Yeah, and I wrote the Hall of Fame post on Larry Allen and almost shed a tear while I was doing it. Mark had to send it back to me because I did such a poor job.
Because it had the tear stains.
Putting my emotions to paper and trying to make it make sense about Larry Allen. But the guy that I left off my list that I really wanted to put on, but I didn't think I could because of the circumstances. My first sports heartbreak and my first professional athlete jersey was Jason Kidd back in the day, and he got traded. He had his rookie year, one co-rookie of the year with Grant Hill. Next year, Tony Braxton happens, and somehow we pick Jim Jackson over Jason Kidd. We really should have just traded the rest of the team and built around him, but we trade Jason Kidd, and my little sports heart, young and fresh, not yet experiencing the sword that is the business of sports, was just ripped in two right there.
That would have been a good one if not for the circumstances.
Yeah.
And he already went to other teams several times.
Yeah, but he came back here and he won a championship, and so I got to shed a Jason Kidd sports cry.
Speaking of like an honorable mention, I do have a serious honorable mention, and this is one that I didn't know if you guys would put any thought into it at all, but it's not a big four sport, but tattoo. It's got to go down. Yeah. The Dallas Burn were big indoor soccer, and now we have SC Dallas, but he was a big part of getting SC Dallas here. So certainly I think
Sidekicks.
Burn and Sidekicks.
Yeah, Burn was FC Dallas's first name. Sidekicks was tattoos team.
Correct. All right, so I'm all over the place here, but thank you for fixing it. So anyways, tattoo is an honorable mention, is not a big force for, but certainly a big Dallas.
Definitely my mom's favorite Dallas athlete of all time.
Just a little bit on my list. Adrian Beltre, I didn't think it really got much of a response from you guys, but the guys that I don't want to see leave, I'm kind of okay with
I can
players.
see that from now on. I didn't put him because he came from somewhere else.
Yeah. I don't want to see him leave
consider
now.
him because of that.
Yeah.
Because he came from somewhere else.
I just don't want to see him leave now. I mean, I
thought he would be on your list, honestly, when we were talking about this.
got such a man crush on him.
I thought Elvis might make your list.
Yeah, I guess all the recent talk about him being traded has just kind of
desensitized you?
Yeah, a little bit. And I would be, especially having a guy like Profar waiting in the wings. You know, I'm already kind of
trying to get used
to that sense of it. So, but I mean, Beltre just plays with a unbridled love of the game, and he makes every game fun. Watching him last year, my sister had half season tickets, so I got to see a lot of the games, and we would just watch him at third base rather than watching the action, because he'd be messing with the other team, he'd messing with Elvis. So I mean, he's just hilarious. But as far as our top 5 current players that we wouldn't want to see leave, Rex, you want to give yours?
Sure, and I went again trying to keep all the 4 sports in. So D-Ware and Dirk are obviously on there, and I have them 1 and 2. And then
Dirk 1?
Yes, Dirk 1, D-Ware 2. And then we'll go 1 through 5 on this one. I had Yu Darvish at number 3 because even though he's only been with the Rangers, this is his second year, he's already shown that he's not just some Japanese sensation. I mean, he's legit. He's got 7 pitches. 7 pitches that he can throw with control and fierceness.
Yeah.
And I mean, 6'5", he can bring it. So I would hate to face him.
Yeah.
I went hockey with Brendan Morrow. He's been on Stars for 11 years. He's the captain. He's good for 20 goals every season. And
yeah, I feel like he is ours, actually.
He's a guy that I don't want him to go anywhere. He's kind of like the Mike Modano that we still have left. I mean, you just don't want him going anywhere.
Yeah, a little less awesome Mike Modano.
Yeah. And then you guys may or may not like this one, but I went with Romo because he is a legitimately good quarterback that I would not want to see on that team, because he would be good for that team. And maybe that's a team that actually can build a defense or actually has an offensive line, and then he would actually win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And everyone would be like, well, why couldn't you do that with Dallas?
Well, I'm fine as long as it's not the Redskins, the Giants, or the Eagles with him playing in another team.
And that is a fair point as well.
Mm-hmm. Mine's the same way, same 1 and 2 with Dirk and DeMarcus Ware. DeMarcus almost got my number 1 here because I love him so much, and because basketball is just a weirder sport where guys move sometimes.
Yeah.
But I realized that I was going to put Dirk higher on the all-time list, so I couldn't then do that because Dirk has meant more to the city in his time here. So I'm going to go backwards just because my last 2, my 4 and 5, are pretty controversial. Number 3 is Jason Witten, which I think is kind of a no-brainer.
I had him as the honorable mention.
Yeah, he kind of is ours. I don't care about hockey really, so I'm not going to force a hockey player on my list. Although, there's lots of people with lots of, and I did force a Ranger on there. But
thank you.
Number 4, and with all the happiness that I gave my father with the 70s talk earlier, is going to go down the drain right here. Number 4 is Des Bryant. And I know it sounds crazy, and I know he's a knucklehead. But the guy's from DeSoto. I follow him on Twitter. He's got such a great, at least fake,
persona.
No, not persona, but his attitude about his training, about the fact that he cares about the Cowboys and what they do in the offseason. I feel like he's definitely a flawed guy, but I think that much like Michael Irvin, maybe a little less on the leadership side of things, but
it could develop though.
Much like Michael Irvin, he's a guy that really wants to work and really cares about the star, and that's something that's important to me, because that's something that translated with the 70s Cowboys is I felt like those guys cared about the laundry as much as fans did. And I think that Dez Bryant, kind of with the DeSoto connection, might have that same deal. Whereas DeMarcus, as great as he is, didn't grow up a Cowboy fan. Jason wouldn't. And if they did, they were cursory, long-distance Cowboys fans. I feel like Dez Bryant was wearing the number 88 Cowboys jersey at 8 years old, not just at 23 years old. So, and then my last one, Mark is going to hate, is Derek Holland. And I think he may go somewhere someday, and I'll be upset. Yeah, I'll be upset. But I would understand it from a baseball point. I just like the guy's personality. I like his stuff, and I feel like he's constantly trying to be better. And he's just got a little something that makes me connect with athletes.
I like that selection. He's one of my top Rangers, and I know Mark doesn't like him, but he is one of my top Rangers too. So
I love how you say like any negative thing ever about a guy, you hate him.
Yeah.
Mark's like, I like Derek Holland. Right?
He's just inconsistent. But real quick, my top 5 started from the bottom. Yu Darvish at 5, DeMarcus Ware at 4, Adrian Beltre at 3, Jason Witten at 2, and Dirk Nowitzki at 1. One thing I thought was interesting in this whole conversation is nobody mentioned Jamie Benn, and I think
it's his negotiation.
The negotiation, yeah. I mean, he's locked up for a while, so he'll be here for a little while. But I also think, he doesn't really have much of a public persona or personality. And I think that's
there's two things that go into that. Is one, the contract thing kind of took him away from the fan base and made him not as a likable person.
It made me feel like he didn't necessarily want to be here.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's still young enough that it's kind of to be determined.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, he still has a chance to, like Dez, they have a chance to capture the fan and become that person that you're like, no, I don't want you to leave. Yeah. But he's still young enough where that's kind of the case. So,
Yeah, and I realized with Dez that he could crash and burn in 2 days, and I could never think about him again. He could be Roy Tarpley. Mm-hmm. But I really do. I just want to believe in him. I want to, and not just because of his talent, because of his, like I said, a lot of it's Twitter and just how he's able to connect. Mm-hmm. I really like who he is on Twitter, and I really like how he comes across. And I think he's a Dallas guy, so I want him to succeed.
That dude is a knucklehead, though.
He's definitely a knucklehead.
Charles Barkley was saying.
And you guys both had Yu Darvish, and I battled back and forth. I really wanted to put him on the list. It's just he's only been here a year, and I was nervous because I felt the Jason Kidd burn. And but he would be an awesome guy. Just his kind of persona and otherworldliness. If he ended up being ours for 10 years, that would be a great guy to be in the Texas Rangers Hall of Fame someday. That would be a great little pin in your map of your franchise's history.
I like it. Good list.
All right, when we come back, we'll take turns building our ideal pitching rotation and bullpen for the Rangers. All right, we're back here on the Strained Hammy Podcast. Now we're going to step into the well-shined shoes of John Daniels and build our ideal pitching rotation and bullpen. And since it's ideal, we're throwing out, or at least I'm throwing out, all existing injuries, and we're going with what we think will be the optimal setup with the guys who are likely to make the roster. So for me, the ideal starting rotation lines up like this. Matt Harrison as your number 1, Yu Darvish as your number 2, Derek Holland, number 3, Colby Lewis, again throwing out injury, Colby Lewis, your number 4, and then I'd have Robbie Ross as your left hand, your fifth starter. Things I like about this setup is you've got obviously you got Harrison. I think he's earned the role of staff ace, coming off what was quietly one of the best years for a starting pitcher last year. It also gives you something more fuel to improve. This is a guy who has said that he wants to be the best pitcher ever. This might be kind of all psychological, but it's something I
it's
like
good to start
about
him there at least in the season.
Well, I think Wash will give Harrison the opening day start.
Yeah,
from his passed.
Yeah, they gave Feldman the opening day starter year in 2011 or 10. So I mean, there's precedent for that. They like to give the guy who's earned it. So. And then I like Robbie Ross is a good bullpen asset, but I think he's better used right now as a starter. What he's been groomed for. You might worry about the left-hand one-out guy, but I think Nate Robertson is showing some things in spring training. Speaking of that, the bullpen, I'd have it set up like this: Joe Nathan as your closer, Joaquin Soria as your setup guy, Jason Frazier as a setup and situational guy. Again, throwing out injuries, I'd like to have Neftali Feliz in a situational middle relief position. Alexi Ogando also, he's so versatile. You can have him situational, long relief if you want. He can be a right-hand, one-out guy. As I said, I think I want Nate Robertson as the loogie. He's been doing some really interesting stuff with his arm angle in spring training, and I think that would play really well in that left-hand, one-out guy situation where you just need one out. And then as your long relief, I'd choose either Derek Lowe or Martin Perez. Travis, what do you got?
I went ahead and put Yu Darvish as my ace, not because I think they'll start the season that way, but I think they will finish the season that way. I think he's a better pitcher. And this is pretty much just to make Mark mad, but I put Derek Holland in my two spot. Basically, I did it ideally, and I feel like if Holland is consistent, he's got better stuff, so he would end up there. If he's just Derek Holland, who's inconsistent, then he obviously won't end up there. Harrison at 3, and if Matt Harrison's your number 3 pitcher, you're awesome.
Yeah,
you're winning the division no matter what the Angels throw out. Offensively, 4, I've got Alexi Ogando. I know he's limited as far as the pitches he throws, but I think he's got 2 really, really good ones. and so if you can get guys out, which he did for half a season. If he can find a way to turn that into a full season, and I know that's difficult, when you don't have a lot of pitches, and guys get a book on you. And then number 5 is Colby Lewis, who, to be honest, if he's healthy, he's probably kicking Holland out in the playoffs because he's got huge balls.
Well put.
Yeah, I try to clean it up. Couldn't do it. Closer, Joe Nathan. Setup, Joaquin Soria. They put it together that way, so I'm not going to argue with them. My 7th inning guy would be Neftali Feliz, barring injury. I think that would be just impossible. Like if you go into a game or into the 7th inning with a lead, and you've got Feliz, Soria, and Nathan all healthy, it's church. I'd have Robbie Ross in middle relief. I think he will be a starter someday. I think they're trying to make him a starter. I think he's, will be better served with a year in a different role out of the bullpen. Long man is Perez. Same situation. I feel like the guys in the rotation above him are better right now. Maybe not next year. My specialists are Kirkman and Tanner Scheppers. Jason Frazier, I think, should be on this list somewhere, but I don't know where to put him. So, and Derek Lowe, the same way, probably should be your long man, but ideally, I want my young guys to beat those older guys. Mm-hmm. So if I'm getting to choose for the future and for now, I want these guys to be better than Derek Lowe.
And I agree with the Derek Lowe. I know you had him in there, Mark, but I just had to leave him out because I feel like what we've seen in spring training, these young guys actually are pitching pretty well. And I don't know if Derek Lowe has a spot based on how well these guys are pitching, the younger guys.
Yeah.
So you are done with that. Okay. I went a little different route, and I kind of went. I factored in the injuries a little bit more, and I also went with the guys that were pitching the best at spring training right now. Mm. And not that you guys didn't factor that in, but I went really focused on that for my starting lineup, and it gave me a problem I ended up with a very left-hand heavy starting line five. So, and I like your logic about putting Yu Darvish second and Matt Harrison first, but I did the same thing. I figured Yu Darvish really is the ace, so I had him one, and there's your right-hander. Everybody else is left-handed. I wanted to put Derek Holland second because I think next to Yu Darvish, he has the best stuff of the rotation guys, but he's just not consistent. Is he a 4 complete game shutout guy, or is he the same guy in that season that had an over 4 ERA for the season?
Nobody knows.
So which guy is it? So anyways, Yu Darvish, Matt Harrison, who's a lefty, Derek Holland is 3 slot, he's a lefty. I went Martin Perez, who is injured, but he will pitch, and he was pitching very well, and he's a lefty. And then Robbie Ross, who's pitching really well, but I probably expect him to be a bullpen guy, but he's pitching well in the starting role right now.
Yeah.
And he's also a lefty. So I went lefty, 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 lefty. The balance to that is most of the guys that come in after the starters are all right-handed. So, and I know they signed Joaquin Soria to be your setup guy. I just like Ogando as the setup guy better. He was incredible in the 8th inning last year, and I thought that's the guy that is the best at that, even though Soria is technically a closer setup guy. I had Soria as a 7th inning guy, then Ogando, and then Nathan. And it is a little bit of a change of pace. Ogando throws a lot harder than both of those guys. So if you have Soria, who throws hard, and then Ogando, who throws harder, and then Nathan, who throws hard, it's still 3 different guys, and it's all guys that can get 3 outs in an inning. So then my long relievers, my right-handed reliever is Colby Lewis, even though he's not 100% healthy right now, but he's familiar with pitching that many innings, and he'll gut it out for you. Kirkman's the left-handed long reliever, and then I could not find a situational lefty because I have them all in the starting lineup. So I have no situational lefty, and then the remainder of the bullpen is Wilmer Font, Tanner Scheppers, and Justin Grimm. And I think Font and Grimm have struggled a little bit more than people, John Daniels and those guys thought they would in the spring training, but they've shown enough from spring training and last year to show that they deserve a spot. I think they still have a couple of weeks to prove it, but that's where I have them right now.
And your situational lefty, who is that?
Nate Robertson hasn't got a lot of pre-spring training buzz, but what I've been reading is he's been doing real well.
He's pitched well in spring training, so I think if he continues, there's certainly a spot for him in the bullpen, and I think that's where he's headed. Kind of like Tanner Scheppers started last year. He was not really on the radars for the bigs last year, but he earned a spot on the 40-man because of how he played in spring training. Yeah. And I think Robinson's in the same boat.
Yeah, it's kind of dangerous to place too much stock in spring training, but the thing I like about Nate Robertson is what he is doing with his arm angle. I think he throws normally at about a 3/4 angle, and then he'll dip it down, I think almost a submarine angle. And coming from a lefty, I mean, that's if you're just looking for a one-out guy, I mean, a guy that can change arm angles like that, I think is
what was the guy we had in the World Series year that was the submarine guy?
O'Day.
Yeah, and that was you needed 1 or 2 outs. That's your guy. Yeah, it's totally change of pace for the hitter. Yeah. They have a hard time making that adjustment, and if you're only going to see him for 1 inning or 1 at bat. That's a really challenging adjustment for him.
And is that? But he's gone through the progression of. He's prepared for the majors. Now, or is he? Should he be a year away, or should he be?
I think he's ready. Yeah, I think he's ready. The thing I thought that was interesting about y'all's starting rotations, besides the left-handedness of yours, was seemed a little bit of hesitation to give Matt Harrison maybe not the props he deserves, but you're just really quick to anoint Yu Darvish, and I'm not so. I just want to say not so fast, my friends. You definitely had a great second half of the season, but I think one thing he needs to work on is definitely his walk rate, getting that down. He does get a lot of strikeouts, but I think I'd like to see him get his walks and hits per inning down just a little bit. I don't want to say you guys are underrating Matt Harrison, but I think
I might be. I'll be honest. I might be.
Yeah, Matt Harrison does have that tendency to have a terrible first inning, but then after that, he calms down considerably, and I just really think, he's earned it. And also, another thing is it probably doesn't even really matter that much who you got 1, who you got 2.
Well, mine was more based on what they can be. So Darvish in
fair.
the second half,
that's fair.
He brought that walk rate down.
Yeah.
He quit giving up the hits to then turn around and strike out 2 guys to get out of the inning with no runs.
But it seems like he's carried those things over into the spring too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And obviously Matt Harrison is the most consistent pitcher I think that we've listed as starting guys. Minus Colby Lewis, but he's injured and is probably not going to be in the rotation. So definitely he's the most consistent, and definitely he's a good consistent. It's not like he's consistently a 5 ERA guy with a couple walks a game. I mean, he's consistently good. Mm-hmm. So he's definitely deserving of that spot. But I got to say, Yu Darvish and Derek Holland, they both have the type of stuff that is legitimate ace stuff.
Yeah.
If they can pitch consistently, you're talking about 2 guys on a staff that could be aces. And that's something the Rays had a couple years ago that was enviable of all teams in the bigs, and something the Angels were trying to get build the last couple years, and obviously that didn't work out too well for them, but that was the idea, is bring in some aces, have 2 aces instead of 1 ace and then some really good guys behind them. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, if those guys can be consistent, that's something we'll have. And then Matt Harrison's your 3rd guy?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah. I would say this, and this contradicts everything I believe. But
you'll say it anyway.
But I'm going to say it because in a different sport, I would view it differently. I give Derek Holland a lot of leeway because I see greatness in him. And in baseball, that greatness can be there a whole game, and then you've got a week to think about that, right? But Darren Collison just had a great game tonight, and I still hate him because he's inconsistent, like Holland is. So you asked, who is Derek Holland? Is he the guy that had a 4 ERA, or is he the guy that threw a shutout in the World Series? That's him. That's who he is. And so you could say the same thing about a number of athletes. If you're inconsistent at some point, and Derek Holland is definitely rapidly approaching that point where you have to say he's just inconsistent. That's who he is. He may not ever be great. He may not be garbage. He may be both.
Yeah. Well, and can I ask you guys one thing real quick? Sure. Kind of going to the bullpen instead of starting guys, but the Joaquin Soria signing, I was actually really baffled by it because he didn't seem to have a place to fit. Yeah, we lost a couple of late inning relievers, but we didn't lose a setup guy because for most of the season it was Ogando, and we didn't lose the closer, which was Joe Nathan. So the Soria, you guys both have him as your setup guy, and I think that's where the Rangers want him to be. How does he really fit? Why did they sign him? If they're really looking to replace Uehara and the other...
Mike Adams.
Yes, Mike Adams. Yeah. So those are the guys they're looking to replace. Well, Mike Adams was a 50-50 8th inning guy. The year before, he was our 8th inning guy. Last year, it was him and Ogando. And I think Ogando actually pitched equally as well, so it wasn't like you were giving that up. So why Soria?
I think it's kind of a depth play and another, they're hoping they can kind of get another hit like they got on Joe Nathan. That kind of an ancillary point, though. The thing that kind of I had the same reaction to you as you did to the Joaquin Soria signing was a Jason Frazier signing, because that was almost like, all right, so we've got our Soria guy, Soria who's our setup guy, and then we get another guy who's been a setup guy pretty much all his career with the Blue Jays. It just seemed like they were just stacking setup guys on setup guys, and you got Ogando, but I think they're just going for depth. It's just going to be really, I don't really have a good answer for it. It's just going to be interesting to see how Ron uses it.
I'm not against it.
Yeah.
It's great, especially late in the season when you're making that playoff push or even in the playoffs. You never know what's going to happen, and it's always good to have an extra guy that if you only need a couple of outs or an inning of work, you've got 4 or 5 guys that are used to a setup/closer role, and those are guys that are used to coming in and getting a couple outs. So from that point of view, late in the season, I like it.
Yeah, and we're talking about ideal situations here, but, obviously ideal situations don't always play out. And, Joe Nathan, I think, is 38, 39. There could be potential for maybe an injury. Maybe he doesn't have as good a season.
Mm-hmm.
Sorey would slide right into there. Frazier could slide right into there. So maybe that's what more kind of along the lines of what they're thinking as far as that goes.
Well, good list, and we'll see how the injuries play out and when guys get healthy and how the season progresses. But up next, it looks like we've got a little fun fan segment, so stay tuned.
Hi, and welcome back to the Strained Hammy Podcast. I'm Travis. I'm here with Rex and Mark.
Did you forget our names for a second?
I did forget. And last Thursday, we went on a little field trip, me and Mark, to the Stars game where they were taking on the Anaheim Ducks. And we saw a rousing match of hockey. And it was my son's first hockey game and my first professional hockey game all at once. It was a good time, but we did run into a special friend of all sports fans who go to live sporting events, the overly obnoxious or overly annoying fan.
Yes. Yeah, he was very annoying.
Yeah.
He was throwing out, cliche after cliche. He wanted everybody in the section to know exactly what he thought. He didn't know any of the players' names, but he sure, was able to yell out their numbers.
He did throw out so many numbers.
It's good to know that he can read.
Yes. Yeah. He was a lot of number 4 talk and a lot of number 13
talk. You're number 4 out of here. Terrible. Unbelievable.
I think we'll just go through his greatest hits real quick. First, he was big on swinging.
Swing it!
Just swing it.
Swing it.
Like somebody who's going to hit the corner 3.
Mm-hmm.
Swing it, bada.
Yeah. And
he made another basketball reference. It was a sort of a breakaway, and he said, "Take it to the rim! Take it to the rim!" Take it top of his lungs.
Which was weird because it doesn't exist.
No.
Maybe the next night when they put the hardwood down, it would have been a nice reference. But he also he just got worse and worse as the game went on, which I think went along with his alcohol intake.
Mm-hmm.
And like the first period, relatively quiet. And the end of the first period, you could tell the dam was about to break with this guy because this lady came back to get her seat, and he's, Steven up! He's trying to get her attention because she's wearing a Steve Ott jersey. She's a section away and has no idea who's talking to her. He finally gets another fan to get her attention, and she turns back to him, and he's like, "Hey, that's it." That's all he had nothing. And he picked the weirdest players to think were terrible. Brendan Dillon had a pretty good game, and he thought he was terrible. He at one point said he should be shot.
Yes.
He did suggest that he should be shot.
He said Ray Whitney, or he called him 13. He said, "You're an Achilles heel."
Oh, 13, come on! You're Achilles heel.
He did. He had a couple of curses, which is annoying when you're with a kid. But his curses, he always quickly apologized. He was trying hard not to. He was just a little over.
You just gotta throw up the earmuffs. Just say earmuffs.
He did. I think he did say earmuffs after his.
Of course.
After his
Why not?
curse, yeah.
Throw that in with the other cliche.
But not before, after.
Yeah.
He was quick with the bro comedy cliche and not so quick with the sports knowledge.
Yes.
That's unfortunate.
And I think our biggest problem with him is if you're a sports novice, like I am with hockey. I watch hockey games, but I don't go to a lot of games. I knew a lot more about hockey than this particular gentleman, but you got to play your position. If you're overly knowledgeable hockey guy, you can talk throughout the game if you know about the team. If you're like me, you cheer when there's a scoring opportunity. You cheer when there's a great save. You cheer when there's a hockey fight. Otherwise, you kind of just sit still and play your part. Rex, do you have any little anecdotes or any particular type of fan that really annoys you?
Well, there's there's two types of fan in particular, and I think this guy kind of mixed with one or both of those types. And the first type is the unrealistic fan. And to me, these fans exist all over the place, and they don't even realize it. And it's the fan, and you can't blame them for being a fan of their team. What you can blame them for is not understanding where that team sits. So, being local Dallas fans, we've all been there when the Mavs struggled to do anything pre-Cuban and Dirk. We fought through those seasons, but we were still fans. The Rangers, I mean, we all know that the Rangers were terrible. Even when they went to the playoffs in the mid-'90s, they were terrible until recently. And so we were fans. The unrealistic fan is the one who is fans of those bad teams, but they're trash-talking the Yankees teams that come in the mid-'90s and just put a whomp on the Rangers.
Or the 5-11 Cowboys talking bad to anybody else.
Anybody, yeah. And it's unrealistic to not be aware of what your team is and who they're playing. And that kind of leads me into my second least favorite fan is the unaware fan. And not necessarily unaware of in that example, but unaware of their surroundings, unaware of, hey, I'm actually at a sporting event. And this can fall into the hot woman who's there to make an appearance with either her girlfriends or her boyfriend or husband, and she really has no clue what's going on, but she's there just to look pretty, and she's talking a mile a minute, and next thing you know, a puck comes over the glass and whacks her right in the face. Yeah. That you gotta pay attention to what's going on in the game, and she has no clue what it is. And it could be this guy that you guys ran into at the Stars game. I mean, he's unaware of kids sitting around, and he drops a swear word, and he's calling for the earmuffs. Yeah. You got to be aware of who's around you. If you're gonna drink, be respectful that you're in a family environment or whatever. I mean, if you're gonna be sitting in 20 rows deep of other guys drinking, all bets are off.
Yeah, if you're in the FC Dallas, supporter section,
right.
Where the DFE is,
yeah,
absolutely have a great time. Curse all you want.
Yeah,
curse the players. I love it. But
yes.
But if there's
there's a 5-year-old sitting 2 rows in front of you, tone it down a little bit.
Right. The kind of fan that kind of annoys me, they don't even realize they're doing it, which I guess most fans don't. But it's the fan who knows a lot about the game, but they don't know enough. For example, I was at a Rangers game last year. It was in the middle of Joe Nathan's stretch of saves where he just was saving every single game. But the guy in front of me was completely oblivious to that fact because as soon as Joe Nathan came into the game, his walkout anthem starts playing. This guy's like, oh, no. This guy, he had Tommy John surgery last year, and he was just awful after he came back. On one hand, he's right. He did have Tommy John. He was awful.
But half the season's gone by.
Yeah. It's a new season. He's on this ridiculous save streak, and this guy's sitting there bad-mouthing him at every pitch, every ball that Nathan threw, which was probably 3 out of the total of 10 that it took. He's like, oh, there he goes. I don't know why I gave him a Minnesota accent, but he's like, there he goes.
Maybe he's a Twins fan.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So
that actually would make sense.
Yeah. So that annoys me, and just anybody who, I guess, even though I like to think that I know a lot about the game, I try to sort of keep that to myself or not talk loudly. And this guy wasn't really talking that loud. He was just talking to his buddy next to me, but he just happened to be sitting right in front of me, and I was getting ready to drop my coking on him because I was just like, come on. But
yeah, I would say the role of every fan is to do a couple of things. And whether you know a lot about the sport or know very little about the sport, you can yell loudly instructions about how players should play in a high school game if one of the kids is your kid. If you are at a sporting event watching professional athletes, you can pretty much bet that all of them know more about their particular sport than you do, unless you're Nolan Ryan sitting over there. So I think the fan has a couple of distinct roles. One is to be loud for your team when you're supposed to be loud. So your job as a fan is to know when to be loud and when to be quiet. If your team, like in football, if it's third down and your team is on defense, you shouldn't have to have the Jerry Jones Jumbotron tell you, hey, it's third down, guys.
Let's yell defense.
Yeah.
Yes, and get a pizza while you're on the concourse.
When you get a chance, put down your margarita and yell for the Cowboys to get a stop here. No, you need to know when to be loud and know when to not be loud. If you're going to have conversations about the sport, that's great. That's some of the beauty of going to a live sporting event. But talk to the person that you came with, or to the person next to you if you manage to.
Unless you came with me, and I will be watching the game, so don't talk to me.
Yeah, but, I'm the same way. I'm incredibly focused on the game, but I don't mind when somebody talks to me about the game, about what's happening right now.
Sure. Don't tell me about what you're doing next Wednesday.
No. But if you are going to talk about what you're doing next Wednesday, do that to your group. Don't do that loud enough where I can hear it. That bothers me. And the third thing is, just under no circumstances, if you don't know what you're talking about, do not yell at players or coaches. So cheer when you're supposed to cheer, boo when you're supposed to boo, be silent when you're supposed to be silent. Always yell at refs, because that's every fan's right, whether you know what you're talking about or not. Although sometimes that does get annoying, the guy that's all refs all the time. Like, that's a foul. And you're like, that's a blackout. That happens.
Yeah.
But the worst I've ever had, and I think the worst fans in BFW history, are 3 or 4 years ago, FC Dallas was marketing almost exclusively to youth soccer clubs. And so the kids knew a lot about soccer and about FC Dallas. And the coaches knew a lot about soccer, some about soccer. But the soccer mom was so bad at it. I'm telling you, it was 60% soccer mom at what was Pizza Hut Park back in the day. So we had season tickets there, and every game it would be a different soccer mom, and every time it was yelling cross it when we needed to clear it, or center it. Yeah, center it, which I don't even know what it means. There were no talks of triangles and give and goes and getting down the wings. There was no
just pass it to Breck, the only player that they know.
Yeah, it was all Breck Shea,
who
at the time was only getting 15 minutes at the end of matches.
But he had the coolest hairstyle.
He definitely had the coolest hairstyle, and a lot of Drew Moore talk because he was gorgeous.
Well, I think that's FC Dallas, but I think Dallas fans in general have kind of a bad rap for being that kind of fan that just they don't yell when they're supposed to yell. They're not loud, and I don't know if that's 50% of the guys in the stadium bring 50% of the women if they want to make an appearance type deal, or what. But I think that's a bad rep that Dallas fans have, and I've been to games where there is an exception to that, and most of them have been in Rangers ballpark, especially when there's something to cheer about. But I remember going to the ballpark in Arlington, the old ballpark.
Yeah.
It seated like 18,000 people, and they were loud.
Yeah.
And that's because they were true fans, and
this is the same 18,000 people every night.
And it's the same 18,000 people that are the first ones in the door now.
Yeah.
It seats 45,000 now, but there's still that core fan base. So bad rap for Dallas fans, but I think there's the good fans out there that know when to cheer, when not to cheer.
Yeah, I think the Rangers, either the Rangers or Mavericks, the upper bowl of the Mavericks, not the lower bowl, but the upper bowl of the Mavericks or the Rangers have the best crowd in DFW. I'd say the worst is FC Dallas, but they don't really count. They're not.
Cowboys.
Yes, the Cowboys have a terrible crowd, but they don't have a terrible fan base. It's just it's so cost prohibitive to actually go to games.
Yeah,
and the party decks where you could probably find real fans, those people are just so loaded by the second quarter.
Then you get into the annoying fans.
Yeah, then you get to the annoying.
And it's a full circle.
Yeah, so the guy that actually knows football and knows when to be loud is too busy, getting in a fight because he got cut in the margarita line or cursing like
Or
crazy.
yelling about how the Eagles suck.
Yeah, or just going into that bit. So The Cowboys probably have the worst and largest fan base, but I think it has more to do with who gets in the stadium than the actual fan base. I think the Cowboys have an educated fan base.
I agree with that. Long story short, don't be an annoying fan. Be aware of your surroundings and pay attention to the game while having a good time.
Yeah, play your position.
Know your role.
Cheer. Don't boo unless it's Derek Fisher or somebody of that ilk. And don't curse. Support your team. And don't talk when you don't know about sports.
All right, wise words from a wise man. All right, that'll do it for the Strained Hammy Podcast. Make sure to visit strainedhammy.com and follow us on Twitter @StrainedHammy. Thanks for listening.
Bring your ticket from the game and get a $5 pizza.